hands.
Did I ever tell you that before?
What's that?
Recording in progress.
Not out loud,
It's a little intimidating. Well, let's start in Shavasana. So come down onto your backs. So we'll do a centering. Just allow your eyes to softly close. Let your gaze settle on something on the ceiling. Invite your back to melt into the floor. Leave that little bit of space between your arms and sides of your body. Space between your feet. Relax the toes out to the sides, away from each other. If your back is an issue first thing in the morning, you're welcome to bend your knees, set your feet on the floor, and then walk your feet away from each other and let the knees drop together. That's all right. Let the breath take you in. So allow the connection to sensations of the inhale and exhale. Bring you into yourself, your practice this morning. Allow the breath to be deep and smooth. Notice the cycle of the breath, so not retaining at the top or the bottom. The inhale soften to the exhale, and the exhale prepare you for the inhale. And then just bend your elbows easily and set your fingertips on your belly. Just on the low belly. And feel the breath. So maybe notice when you inhale, the fingertips drift apart a little bit. When you exhale, drift back towards each other, just with the belly moving underneath your hands. Inviting the breath to be even so that the inhale and the exhale are the same length. Keeping your attention on the sensations of the breath, especially starting in Shavasana at the beginning of the class, it's easy to kind of drift back into sleep because didn't you make a lot of effort to get here? So taking a nap right now would be a nice idea, but no. So if your knees are not already bent, go ahead and bend your knees. And then walk your feet to the sides of the mat and windshield wiper the knees, matching the breath with the movement. So drop the knees to one side on an exhale. Bring them back to center on the inhale and take them to the opposite side on your next exhale. Keeping the hands on the belly, feel the pelvis moving underneath your hands. Also take your attention to your low back and feel what's happening in the SI joints, in the hip sockets. So be aware of that thigh bone deep inside the hip joint. And just notice what it feels like. This is an easy with gravity practice, so you're not forcing anything to one side or the other. See if you can notice the subtle stretch at the quad on top of the thigh as you take your knees from side to side. And then bring the knees back to center, walk your feet a little closer to each other. And draw both knees in towards your chest. A little bit of a hug. Keeping the head and shoulders on the mat. Go ahead and lace your fingers around the right knee and let the left leg float straight out toward the floor. Nice and long. And then flex both ankles. So activate both legs at the same time, flexing the ankles. And on the exhale, draw that right knee in toward the chest just a little bit deeper. And while you're here, you're holding the pose, but draw your attention to low in the belly. Can you feel the restriction on the right side, obviously, but can you feel the freedom of the breath on the left side of the lower belly? So we're just giving some attention and some focus to what might be a little more subtle, things that are not necessarily paid attention to. Now, keeping both hands on that knee, on the shin, slide the knee over towards your right shoulder. So we're not rolling onto the left or the right hip, and we're not letting go with one hand. We only want to take the knee so far so that you feel the stretch deep inside that hip, maybe at the groin. And just be aware of sensation. So keeping both hands on the knee or on the shin lets you kind of decide with a little bit of discipline how far that knee goes out. Be aware of sensation. Bring it back towards center. Keep the left hand on the knee. Take your right arm out to the floor, straight out of the shoulder, palm down. That's your kickstand. Now cross the body with that right knee and take it toward the floor on the left side, rolling onto the left hip. Keeping the right shoulder back against the floor, aware of the twist and where you feel it. So there's no right or wrong way except to stay safe, to stay in alignment, but everybody's body's different. So notice what you feel. Maybe that knee is never going to go to the floor. That's fine. I want you to feel the stretch in the buttock cheek, in the outside of that right hip and thigh, and across the low back. Maybe also aware of the twist at the bottom of your ribs on the front body. Just let yourself be aware. If you've got your hand on the knee, you can press it toward the floor, maybe deepen the stretch just a tiny bit, listening to your body. It's the first deep stretch of the morning, so be aware. And then slowly come back to center. Draw both knees in toward your chest. Take a nice deep breath in and a deep breath out. And then lace both hands around the right or the left knee. Let the right leg float out to the floor. So we do the same thing to the opposite side. As you draw that knee toward the chest, the right leg is resting, flexing both ankles, and aware of the breath low in the belly. But notice the freedom now on the right side. Inhaling and exhaling, nice and deep. Keeping both hands on that knee, on the shin. Slide the knee over toward the left shoulder. Opening at the inner thigh, in the groin. Notice where you're feeling sensation. We're looking for stretch, not strain. Your body knows the difference. So keep reaching with the heels. Bring that knee back to center. Leave the right hand on the left knee. Take the left arm out to the floor and move into that twist. At whatever level feels right to you. And remembering that one side may be a little different than the other. Maybe a little different than yesterday. Aware of where you're feeling whatever it is that's making itself aware to you. Notice the buttock, the left thigh, the IT band, all the way down into the knee if that's available. Maybe pressing the knee toward the floor just a little bit deeper. Keeping that left shoulder back against the mat. Noticing the front of the left shoulder as well as the front of the body at the bottom ribs. Continuing to reach with your heels and seeing how that little tiny adjustment deepens the stretch just a bit. And then softly come back to center. Both knees come into the chest. Deep breath in. Deep breath out. And then on the inhale, take the arms overhead and stretch the legs long, point the toes. And on the exhale, give yourself a tuck. Knees come back to the chest, hands come back to the knees. Inhale long and extend. And then exhale, tuck. We're going to move through 4 more of those. Keep the head and shoulders against the mat. And just let the stretch be long, pointing and reaching. And then exhaling. Tuck the knees in toward the chest. Aware of your low back while you're moving. And then we finish in a nice long stretch. Arms are still overhead, resting against the floor. Go ahead and point the right toes and reach with the right fingers. Stretch open the right side of the body. Feel the length in the ribs down through the hip. And then on the exhale, release it. Inhaling, stretch open the left side. Nice long ribs. And come back to center. Then you're going to take your arms straight out of your shoulders to T-pose. Let your palms press down into the floor. You're going to lift your legs straight up toward the sky, and then lift your pelvis and shift it to the left. Keep the legs together, and you're going to let them float over to the right side, just about 45 degrees. You'll notice the twist across the waist. Take it as far as you can without going toward the floor too much. And then once you're there, press your right leg into your left, as if you're trying to lift the left leg and resist it. The energy moves into the side waist. We want to hold the pose, but keep breathing for another 4, 3, 2. Keep pulling that bottom leg into the top leg, and then bring yourself back to center. You can set the feet down and adjust the spine, adjust the pelvis to center. Take a nice deep breath in and a deep breath out. And then lift the feet again, straighten the knees, lift the lower back and shift the hips to the opposite side. And then take your legs over to the left. 45 degrees, flex the ankles, pull your toes towards you. Press the bottom leg into the top leg, so you're resisting. Feel the tension that happens at the sides of the waist. And hold the posture while you breathe for another 4, 3, 2. And then come back to center. Set the feet down. Align your spine. And just take a nice deep breath in and a deep breath out. Pick up your feet. Let your shins float parallel to the floor so the knees are bent. Flex the ankles. You can lace your hands around the back of your head and let your head rest in your hands like the hands are a hammock. So the upper back and the shoulders against the floor, elbows stay out to the sides, and find out where you need your knees. Your low back is going to tell you that. So pull the belly in, press your low back into the floor, and if you want to draw your knees a little closer for some comfort, you're welcome to, because we're going to keep the feet and the legs here. If you can take them away from you a little bit for a challenge, just notice that that's going to be where you hang out for a bit. Now lift your head and shoulders, take your chin to the sky, and then inhale, come back down. Exhale, lift. Chin toward the sky. Inhale, come back down. As you continue to move through this with the breath, be mindful of the muscles between the bottom ribs and the pelvis, and see if you can shorten that space as you exhale and lift. And then inhale, release, and come back down. Exhale, lift, and inhale, lower. All the attention is on the abdominals. Exhale, lift, and inhale down. Feel what you're feeling and move through 3 more. And then on that last exhale, settle into the floor, set your feet down. Don't draw your knees towards your chest. Just set your feet down, relax the body, and feel the belly. Notice the heat. Notice the warm up. Notice the little bit of tension. Notice the release as you exhale. So all that attention, all that you're feeling, this is prana. You've drawn prana to that area through the movement. Now you're welcome to pick up the feet, let the shins float again, parallel to the floor. Knees are over top of the hips, ideally, but if you need to draw them a little closer to you, just be mindful of what your low back is asking for. Pull the belly in, press your low back into the floor. Hands are still laced behind your head. Lift your head and shoulders and twist your right elbow towards your left knee, and then come back to center, inhale down. Exhale, lift and twist the left elbow toward the right knee. Come back to center, inhale down. So you get the rhythm. Exhale up and twist. Inhale, center and down. Exhale up and twist. Inhale, center and down. Can you move through 3 more on each side? And listening to the body, if you need to settle out of it, then do that. So see if you can lift and then twist. Center and down. It's very calculated. And when you've finished, you all meet with your feet down on the mat and just stop moving. Keep your hands behind your head. Just notice what you're feeling. It's just about awareness. Now stretch your legs long against the floor. Point your toes, take your arms up overhead, and feel how nice that stretch feels right at the belly where you've been working. Nice deep breath in and a deep breath out. Draw your knees in towards your chest and roll over onto one side. And then bring yourself to table pose. So once you come up to table pose, find your neutral spine. Let there be some energy and discipline at the lower belly. And just be aware of that while you reach the crown of your head forward and send the shoulders down your back towards your waist. Soften your feet behind you. Let the tops of your feet, where your shoelaces would be, rest on the floor. Can you press your shins toward the floor? Can you ground your hands and just as if you're pushing the floor away with a neutral spine, and now begin to move through really deep cat-cow. And keep the teeth together without gritting them. And as you inhale, feel that stretch down the front body. And as you exhale, feel the rounding in the back and the stretch maybe in the thighs. And as you continue to move, draw your attention to the low belly. And when you exhale, pull the belly in and round the low back a little bit deeper. And inhale, softly release it. Invite yourself to move deeply through 4 more. And then here's where you want to remind people, you've had something to eat right before you got here, maybe don't pull the belly in so tight. You know what you need. And then when you finish, come back to a neutral spine, resting in table pose. And then very softly, take your elbows to the floor right underneath your shoulders. And then you can check that they're underneath your shoulders by crossing the arms and let your fingers reach back towards your triceps. Once you establish the elbows into the floor, bring the forearms back out so that they're parallel with each other. Press your forearms and your hands as well as your elbows into the mat and relax your neck. Let your crown drop toward the floor, but it's not on the floor. So from here, turn your toes under and lift your knees, coming into dolphin. And just let yourself rest here. So it's the first time we've opened the back of the legs. You can pedal your feet a little bit like you would coming into down dog. And just feel what's opening in the back of the legs, as well as the heat that's moving into the shoulders by grounding the forearms and the elbows. Looking back between the feet, keeping the neck relaxed, and then inhale up onto your toes nice and high. Maybe walk your toes another 3 inches forward
and melt the heels toward the floor, mindful of your hamstrings, softening the knees if you need to, and then press the floor down and forward. Bring your head toward your knees between the upper arms. Nice deep breath in and a deep breath out. Feel what you're feeling while you're here, mindful of your body, respectful of your limits. If you need to set your knees back down, then do that. If you can be here for another 3 breaths, let yourself refine. Just listening to your body. And then after that 3rd breath, we all meet in child's pose. So open the knees toward the sides of the mat. If that gives you a nice wide space to settle the ribs between your thighs. Stretch your arms forward, but you've used your shoulders. So if you can maybe sense in the shoulders that they need a deep child's pose, bring your thumbs back next to your ankles. Let the elbows drop to the floor on the outside of your knees and relax your shoulders. Maybe tuck your chin in towards your chest a little bit to get some space at the back of your neck. Listen to your body. And feel what you need to feel here. So this is about awareness. Yoga introduces you to yourself. There's all kinds of things about us that we don't really even know until we move into a challenge or move into something new. Take a risk, and sometimes some of the simplest things can be a risk. Now slide your fingers forward toward the front of the mat. Rock onto your knees and bring them underneath your hips. Turn your toes under and float to down dog. And again, if you want to pedal your feet, opening up the back of the calves. If you don't need to, that's fine too. Let yourself refine your down dog. So press the palms of your hands down into the floor. Ground each one of the knuckles and the palms. Maybe imagine that you're squeezing a beach ball between your elbows, which opens the wings across the upper back. Gives a little bit more stability to your shoulders. Sometimes in down dog, we can find injury by pushing the floor away and getting too long in the shoulders. Let your arm bones settle down into the shoulder joints. And then inhale, come up onto your toes. Send your sit bones up and back, and then melt the heels down toward the floor. And soften the knees if your hamstrings are asking you to. And then take your attention to your rib cage. Can you draw the bottom ribs in a little bit so you're not so hyperextended in the spine? Not that I'm seeing that, but it's just a nice cue. Nice deep breath in and a deep breath out. Inhale up onto the toes. Exhale the knees to the floor and step the right foot through. And then you're welcome to take the left knee back a little bit further. Let your fingertips rest on the floor, or you can bring your hands to blocks if that gives you just a little more space between your torso and your thigh. Leave the left hand on the floor or on a block, and bring your right hand to the outside of the right knee. You're going to press the knee towards center, and then press your left hand into the block. And bring the left shoulder towards center as you rotate the right shoulder back a little bit. Maybe look up over that right shoulder toward the sky. Once you get into your twist, bend your right knee a little bit deeper, sinking the pelvis toward the floor, and feel the stretch in the front of that left thigh, the left hip flexor. You can hold this posture, keeping the right knee towards center, or you can take the right arm straight up toward the sky, come into a twist. And then be mindful that you're not collapsing into that left shoulder. So keep some length in the neck, keep some discipline in the left shoulder, and feel what's happening here. Nice deep breath in and a deep breath out. If you press the right knee towards center a little deeper, you send some energy up into the hip, the groin, and the pelvis. Be here for one more breath in and reach. And then exhale, bring that hand to the floor. Bring the right knee back to meet the left. Turn your toes under and float it into down dog. And you're here for 3 breaths. So take that time to refine the pose if you feel like you need to. Maybe just come into it a little bit deeper. Relaxing the neck, let the crown of your head reach towards your thumbs, nice long neck. And then inhale up onto your toes, exhale the knees to the floor, and step your left foot through. So find that lunge on this side. If you want to walk the right knee back a little deeper, you're welcome to. Fingertips to the floor or on blocks. Keep your right hand on the floor, bring your left hand to the outside of the knee. So press the palm into that knee. And as you press the right hand into the floor or the block, bring the right shoulder underneath you. Rotate the left shoulder back. So you bring the left scapula toward the spine a little bit. It lets the heart shine from in front of you. And you can stay here, mindful of what's happening in the front of that right hip, right thigh. Maybe drop the pelvis a little bit deeper. And then let the left arm float up if you choose to. Stacking the shoulders. Nice discipline in that right shoulder as you press the floor away with the hand. Press the left knee a little closer towards your heart. Feel the energy that moves up into that hip and groin. Be here for one more breath in. And then exhale, float the hand to the floor. Bring the left knee back to meet the right. Turn the toes under and float back to down dog. Deep breath in and deep breath out. And then you're welcome to walk or hop forward and settle into a forward fold at the front of your mat. Let there be a fist width between your feet. Maybe put your fist down between the balls of your feet. Relax your neck. Let your spine go to ease. You can say yes and no with your head to make sure there's no tension in the neck. The feet are parallel with each other. Bend your knees and let your ribs and belly settle down on your thighs. Now you have two options here. You can reach your hands behind your calves and squeeze your elbows in towards your thighs. Draw yourself deeper into your forward fold, or you can cross your arms behind your knees. Yeah, this will take you have to do. And then when you start to come back up to forward fold, not necessarily paying attention to your knees, but send your sit bones high toward the sky. Once you're there, release your arms. Let your fingertips drop to the floor on the outside of your little toes. Soften your elbows, keeping the neck relaxed. And just feel your forward fold. Notice what's happening. And then coming out of it, bend the knees deeply. Sit down into an imaginary chair. Take your arms out to the sides, press into the mat with your feet, come all the way up, palms together overhead, and on the exhale, bring your hands down through center and rest at namaste. Nice deep breath in, and a deep breath out. Inhale, raise the crown of your head and the roof of your mouth toward the sky. Feel the length in your body. On the exhale, feel the settling and the stability down through the pelvis, the legs, and into the feet. Relax your arms and come to mountain pose. Close your eyes. Just feel what you feel here. You've already done enough movement to heat up the body just a little bit, to bring awareness into the joints, your range of motion, your breath. And then open the eyes and move through sun salutation. Inhale, sweep the arms all the way up. On the exhale, soften the knees, send the sit bones back up into your forward fold. Listen to me. Bring your hands to your shins, straighten your elbows and come into flat back. And on the exhale, forward fold. Soften your knees, step your right foot back. Find your foundation, keep the knee high, and inhale. Sweep the arms out to the sides and come all the way up to warrior one. But let it be a balancing warrior one. Keep the heel off the floor behind you. We want to be here for another 5 breaths. So refine the pose to whatever you think you need. If you send that right heel back a little bit deeper, draw some energy up into the right thigh. Pull the kneecap up into the thigh. Feel the energy that moves into the right buttock. Bending that left knee, maybe another half an inch. Send the pelvis down. Be mindful that your hips are pointed toward the front of the mat. Pull your bottom ribs in a little bit. Feel the breath low in the belly. Shoulders down the back. Length of the neck is important. Feel that space between the bottom of your ears and the top of your shoulders. Palms face each other. And on the next inhale, we all reach a little higher. And on the exhale, swan dive down. Frame the front foot and step back to down dog. Give yourself 3 breaths in down dog. Be mindful of your space between your hands and your feet. Sit bones high. Hamstrings are long. Neck is relaxed. On the next inhale, float forward to your plank pose. Let yourself be in plank pose with the hands rooted, wiggling the feet if you need to get a little bit longer. Send the shoulder blades down the back. Reach the crown of the head forward. Notice the discipline in your neck. And then when you're ready, if you need to set the knees down, you're welcome to. Soften the feet and slowly lower. You can take it to knees, chest, chin, or you can soften into preparation for cobra. And then inhale to a low cobra. Exhale, forehead, tip of the nose to the mat. Stay here and inhale again to cobra. And then exhale, forehead, tip of the nose to the mat. One more time. Inhale to cobra. Mindful of your back. You can come into down dog from here, or if you need to take your forehead back down, you're welcome to. Lift to down dog. Nice deep breath in. Deep breath out. Inhale the right leg straight up. Reach with the heel. Keep the ankle flexed. And on the exhale, step that foot forward and find your Virabhadrasana 1 with that balancing. Stay on the toes of the left foot. Once you find your foundation, sweep the arms out and up. Bending that right knee just a little bit deeper. Squaring the pelvis toward the front of the mat. Draw the bottom ribs in, but feel the breath low in the belly. So interesting, it's a soft back bend, but Warrior 1 is a back bend. So as you inhale and reach the fingers high, see if you can be mindful to keep your arms next to your ears. That's not always available for tight shoulders, but just let there be some extension and discipline in the arms. And then find length in your neck. So send the shoulder girdle down the back a little bit. Be here for one more breath in, and I'll reach a little higher. And then exhale, swan dive down, step to the front, and release to your forward fold. Awesome. And then release it. Come all the way back up. Find your way to Hastasana. Reaching, nice deep breath in, palms together overhead. Exhale your hands through center. And then come back to mountain pose. So one side down. Inhale, sweep your arms all the way up. Exhale, soften into your forward fold. Hands to your shins. Inhale to flat back. Be mindful not to hyperextend the knees here. And then exhale, forward fold. Soften and step the left foot back. Once your foundation is established with balancing on the left toes, the ball of the left foot, sweep the arms out and up and come into Warrior 1. Find strength in that back leg. Reach back through the heel without collapsing. Draw some energy up into that thigh. Pull the kneecap up into the thigh, tighten the left quad, and maybe bend the right knee just a tiny bit deeper. Sink it down. Mindful of your shoulders. Coming to goalpost pose is not a sin. Nice deep breath in and deep breath out. Inhaling, we all reach a little higher. And then exhale, swan dive down. Step back to your down dog. Press the hands deeply into the floor. Push the floor down and forward. See what that does for your shoulders. Find that imaginary beach ball between your elbows. Nice deep breath in and a deep breath out. Inhale, flip forward to your plank pose. We'll be here for 3 breaths. So if setting the knees down is kinder to your low back, you're welcome to do that. Nice deep breath in, shoulders down the back, crown of the head reaches forward toward the center of the room. Articulate. And when you're ready, lower yourself down. Knees, chest, chin. or softly into the floor with the torso. Inhale to low cobra. Exhale, soften back to the floor. Inhale to low cobra. The muscles in your back do the work. Feel what happens in the abdomen as you lift and lower. One more time. Inhale and lift. And if you choose to, turn the toes under, move back either through table pose or lift to down dog. Legs stay straight. Feel the, isn't your body starting to feel really nice? You're all in there. Inhale the left leg straight up. Flex the ankle, reach with the heel, and on the exhale, step it forward. Stay balancing on the right toes. Bend the right knee. Coming into Virabhadrasana 1. Let the heart shine forward. Maybe turn your little fingers towards each other. See what that does to your shoulders if your arms are straight up. Deep breath in, and deep breath out. Inhale, reach a little higher. Exhale, swan dive down. Step to your forward fold. Be here for another 2 breaths. See what you can do to refine this simple posture. How long is your spine? How much does the crown of your head and the skull weigh? Can you relax it? And then sit down into that imaginary chair. Sweep the arms out to the sides. Come all the way up. Palms together overhead. Exhale, hands to your heart. Nice deep breath in. And then come back to mountain pose. Eyes are closed. Just feel what's happening in the body. Being kind, taking care, softening into child's pose, or even Shavasana. If you find that the body has taken too much today, you can rest in Shavasana and then imagine with your eyes closed that your body is moving through the rest of the postures with the rest of the class. It's amazing what happens when you imagine that you're doing something. The benefits still come. So listen to the body. Bring your hands to prayer pose. Nice deep breath in. On the exhale, soften the knees, step your left foot back and open to warrior 2. So find your Virabhadrasana 2. Find your foundation. Leave the bend in that right knee be nice and deep, but then press the knee out toward the little toe side of the foot, keeping the big toe on the right foot grounded. So it opens the inner thigh. We want the pelvis to face the long side of the mat. Turn your palms toward the sky, soften the elbows, and let your shoulders come down just another inch. It's amazing what that feels like. Now, keep the shoulders where they are, keep the elbows soft, and turn your palms back toward the floor. Reach a little further out of your heart. The arms get nice and long. Now flip the right palm toward the sky and let yourself float to reverse warrior. Instead of moving into an arch with your back and your spine, can you reach straight up out of the hip with the right fingers and let the right side of the body be nice and long from the crook of the hip all the way up through the ribs, the armpit, the elbow, and the palm. Fingertips reach nice and high. Bend the right knee another inch, sinking the pelvis down. Just be aware of what you're feeling while you're here. If you notice that something's starting to shake, maybe the muscle fibers are just waking up. If that's causing pain, then come back up out of it. Be here for one more breath, reach a little higher. And then exhale, windmill the right hand down and the left arm comes to angle pose, side angle pose. You can bring the right elbow to the knee, palm facing up, or you can take the right hand to the floor, either inside or outside that foot. Whatever posture works for you. Everybody has a different way of coming into side angle. Now we want to stack the shoulders. So let the left fingers reach straight up toward the sky initially. Bring that left wing toward the spine in the middle of your back and reach the fingers a little bit higher. And now bring the left arm up next to your ear. So find that length from the left fingertips all the way down through the left side of the body and into the left ankle and heel. Find your gaze. Sometimes it's easier on the back if you look down toward the right big toe. Maybe keep your eyes straight forward, or you can look up past that left elbow. We're here for another breath in and another breath out. And then windmill back open to warrior two. How much you got left in that side? Straighten your right knee. Let yourself extend out over the right thigh and take yourself to triangle. So we move into Trikonasana. Be mindful not to hyperextend the knees. Draw the lower belly in, but feel your breath low in the torso. And can you stack the shoulders again? Maybe bring your left hand behind your low back and bring that left shoulder back a little bit. Feel the strength in that left shoulder. Once you get it settled down into the joint, now take your left arm straight up. Deep breath in, deep breath out. Inhale, reach a little higher. Exhale, bend your right knee, float back up to warrior two. And then windmill down and step back and down dog. What a lovely practice. I don't remember everything I said on that side, so on the other side. Nice deep breath in, lift your left foot, and then step it forward. Windmill open to warrior two. Nice and long. Find your foundation before you extend your arms. Maybe bring your hands to your hips and let the pelvis and the torso, as well as the shoulders, open to the long side of your mat. And look out over that left shoulder. Now extend the arms. Turn your palms toward the sky. Soften the elbows. Find the length in your neck. Be mindful that your torso is straight up and down. So we want, like, from right at the perineum all the way up through the front of the spine, the roof of the mouth, and the crown of the head toward the sky. Nice long spine. Turn the palms toward the floor. Reach a little further out of your heart. And then turn your left palm to the sky and come to reverse warrior. Find length in that left side. So you that little crook where you've got the bend in the left thigh meeting the hip, straight up through the hip, the ribs, the armpit, fingertips reach to the sky. Bend your left knee another inch. Beautiful. Inhale, reach a little higher. Exhale, come back through warrior two and take yourself to side angle. So elbow to the knee, arms straight up initially. So let yourself stack the shoulders before you move into the posture any deeper. If you want to take your left hand to the floor, you can find a block, but be mindful of the left shoulder. So don't collapse through it. You want length in the neck. And then bring your right hand behind your back. Palm faces out. Bring the right shoulder blade toward the spine. Let the heart open a little deeper toward the front. And then slide your right thumb up your ribs. Bring your hand to the front of your shoulder. And then open the elbow and take your fingertips to the sky. Sometimes that's a little easier on the shoulder than winging the arm up from behind your back. So just play with some things. Find out what you're feeling here. Be here for one more breath. And then come back up to warrior two. This deep breath in and a deep breath out. Straighten that left knee. Find your foundation for Trikonasana. Slide your ribs and the left fingers forward. And then drop the left hand. Bring the right fingers to the sky. And here again, you can adjust your shoulders by bringing the right hand behind your back. Roll the right shoulder back a little deeper. Maybe press the back of your left hand into the shin or hand into the block and bring the left shoulder forward. Sometimes that gives you a little bit more space. Now slide your right fingers off the ribs to the front of the shoulder, open the elbow, and find comfort. Asana means stability and comfort. Find comfort in Trikonasana for another 2 breaths. And then soften front knee. Come back up to warrior two. Establish the pose for a breath or two.
And then windmill down. Frame the front foot, step back to down dog. Inhale up onto your toes, nice and high. On the exhale, take your knees to the floor. Drop into child's pose. You have earned it. Feel what you need to feel here. See if you can take yourself out of critical mind. Whatever's happening in the body, if there's emotion, if there's release, if there's just deeper breath, just notice what's happening and let it be. There's nothing you need to fix or change. Just notice. And then slide yourself forward onto the mat and bring yourself to crocodile. Feel the breath flow in the belly. Notice those bottom floating ribs and the low back expanded with the inhale and softened with the exhale. Be aware of your hips. So adjusting the feet accordingly to maybe accommodate the hips, either toes out or toes in. Just make sure there's a little space between your feet. And for a little bit of side stretch, if it's available to you, bring your legs together. Point your toes. Let the legs be soft. And very softly, walk your torso and your elbows over to the right side. If you're coming into that side stretch in Cobra, keep the forehead resting and just feel the opening on the long side. Be aware of the compression on the shorter side. And just breathe here. If you want to take it a little deeper, walk your feet to the same side as your torso, just another inch or two. So it's kind of crescent moon, but prone. Just 2 more breaths. Notice whatever's making itself known. Bring the legs back to center first, and then slowly walk your torso back to center. Be here for a deep breath in, and a deep breath out. And then when you're ready, walk your torso to the opposite side. Like inch-warming your elbows. And if you choose to, you can take your legs to the same side, just a couple of inches at a time. Enjoy the stretch. Soft and subtle. See how the breath affects the stretch. And then softly bring the legs back to center. Walk your torso back to center. And then roll over onto your back. So bending your knees, I'm just going to stretch the hips a little bit. Bring your right ankle across your left knee and press that right knee away so the hand settles down on the inside of the right thigh. And just push it away and see where you feel something. Notice if you feel nothing. Maybe you're hyperflexible and there's no real issue here. If there is, you pretty much know it right away. And then can you pick up your left foot and lace your fingers around the back of the left thigh? Keep the right ankle on the knee. And you're welcome to keep the knee bent. If you want to go a little deeper, straighten that left leg and reach with the heel toward the sky. Use the strength of your arms to take the right elbow and press the right knee away. And pull the left leg a little closer to your torso. Head and shoulders stays on the floor, and so does the low back. So know your level here. You always want to accept a challenge, but knowing your limits is sometimes more beneficial. And you can rest here, drawing that leg closer. Feel the stretch in the hamstring if the leg is straight. Notice the stretch in the hip if you've got the knee bent. You can take it deeper by lifting the head and shoulders. Tighten every muscle in your body. Bring your face toward that knee. Squeeze everything and hold this while you breathe for another 4, 3, 2, go a little deeper, and then release to the floor. Soften into it. Set both feet down on the mat. Relax. Take a nice deep breath in, a deep breath out. And we can't have you leave looking like you were born on a hill, so bring your left ankle across your right knee. Press that left thigh away. And then when you're ready, lift the right foot. Lace your fingers around the back of the right thigh. And draw that knee in. You're all pretty flexible, but there's also an opportunity to use a strap here. If you have people that are a little more soft tissue in the belly, you can put a strap around the back of that knee and pull it towards you. That way it's available to everybody. If you want to straighten the right leg, feel the stretch in that hamstring. Flex both ankles. See how that deepens the stretch a little bit, even the one across the knee. And then using that left elbow to press the left knee away, draw that right leg a little closer to you. Aware of the stretch. You can stay here if you choose to, or you can lift the head and shoulders, come tight into a nice deep, deep tension. And be here for 4, 3, 2, go a little deeper, keep breathing, and then inhale and release. Soften down to the floor. You can set your feet down, open them wide, and then windshield wiper the knees if that's something that your lower back might be asking for. Maybe your thighs are asking for it. And bring your feet closer to each other. Hands to the floor on either side of your hips. If you have a block close by, you want to just make sure that it's there. Draw the belly in, press your low back into the floor. And then inhale, lift to bridge pose. And you're welcome to hold the bridge pose. Or you can find supported bridge pose by sliding the block underneath the sacrum. Either way, we're going to be here for 5 breaths. So let the inhale and the exhale be about the same length. If you're holding the bridge pose, you'll notice tension in the torso. Maybe notice what's happening in the hamstrings and the buttocks, but also the front of the quads. If it's available to you without hurting your knees, to walk your feet a little closer underneath you, see if you can do that. But keep the thighs towards each other. Don't let them splay open. You always want your knees to be the same width as your hips. So we're stretching the inner thigh as well as the outer thigh and the quads. Nice deep breath in and a deep breath out. On the next breath, see how you notice the breath affecting the pose. And then lift a little higher. If you have a block under there, take it out. Use the abdomen to slowly lower. Always an opportunity for some ab work. Bringing the spine down to the mat, 1 vertebrae at a time. I've always noticed that coming out of a deep bridge pose for me is easier if I come up onto my toes. I don't know if anybody else notices that. Yeah, I saw you. Feel the breath. And then let the soles of your feet drop together. Invite your knees to open out to the sides. Coming into reclining butterfly pose. And we're just going to be here for 5 or 6 breaths. Just let yourself release into it. Set your hands on your low belly or the inside of your thighs and just settle into the floor. Notice what happens to your low back. Pelvis drops forward. So there's a little more space between your waist and the floor. Just an awareness. The lordosis makes itself known, and also behind the back of your neck. Just aware of what you're feeling as you rest open. The breath deep and smooth. And very softly, you can take your hands to the outside of your thighs and press your knees towards each other. Just lift them back together. If you want to move through a twist before we come to Shavasana, now's the time to do that. Bring the knees up, arms out to the sides. Drop the knees to one side. You can take it all the way up into the skull if you look over the opposite arm. And then release any tension as you rest in the spinal twist. Feel the breath low in the torso. If your knees are to the right, let yourself feel the breath in the left lung. Inhale all the way down to the bottom of the ribs. Exhale up to the collarbone. If your knees are to the other side, breathe into the right lung. Not exclusively, but we don't have much choice in that. More about awareness. And coming out of it, softly bring your head back to center. Pull the belly in, and then bring the knees up. Take a breath in and a breath out, centered on the mat. And then take your twist to the other side. Resting into it. Feel what's happening across the chest. Notice the breath in the lungs. Relax the buttocks, the thighs, and the knees. Are you holding any tension in your ankles? Can you leave a little space between your teeth to relax your jaw? And softly bring your head back to center, draw the belly in, bring the knees back up, and find your way to Shavasana. So using props or blankets, whatever you need, find your comfort. Create that space between your feet. However, find a little bit more length in your legs by flexing your ankles where they are, press your heels into the floor, and then softly point your toes. See how long your legs get. And then do the same thing with your arms, like walk the back of your hands a little further away from you, and then rest your shoulders, soften the elbows, and maybe walk the wings underneath you a little closer to each other, just so let them flatten against the floor. And then you can very softly, keeping the head on the mat, just roll your chin from side to side, once or twice. Just release any tension in the cervical spine. Bring the head back to center. And settle into your breath. Letting all your muscles melt away from the bones. the sensations of the breath. The tip of the nostrils, across the roof of the nostrils and sinuses, past the back of the throat, opening the lungs, the muscles between the ribs, letting the belly to rise and fall. Follow the path of the breath deliberately for the next 3 or 4 breaths, inviting your thinking mind to rest at ease. Invite your attention with the next inhale to come to that third eye space, between the eyebrows, not on the surface, deep in the brain. Feel the breath here. Be aware of this space. Invite your attention to rest on it. Now with the next exhale, drop your attention to the throat chakra. Feel the breath here. Invite your attention to rest here. Softening a little deeper with the next exhale. Moving to the heart chakra, behind the sternum, in front of the spine. Feel the breath here. Invite your attention to rest here. Dropping deeper still to the navel center, Manipura chakra. Feel the breath here. Deep inside you. With the next exhale, taking your attention to the Muladhara. It's available to feel the subtleties of breath at the root chakra. Invite your attention to rest here. Soft and subtle. Maybe nothing. Maybe something. Next inhale, nourish and feed you all the way up through the chakras to the crown of the head. And exhaling, releasing and cleansing from anything you don't need down through the soles of your feet. Inhaling, nourishing, taking in white light, positivity. Exhaling, letting go of sadness. As you come back to your day, letting a deeper breath. With the exhale, beginning to move moves and toes. Extending movement into your ankles and wrists. Whenever you're ready, bringing the soles of your feet to the mat, bending your knees. Finding yourself moving through a stretch if that feels appropriate. Whenever you're ready, rolling over onto your right side. Bring your head and your right arm. Just feel the shift in prana inside the body as you change the posture. With as little disruption as possible. Your eyes still closed. Move back to a seated posture. Finding some comfort and stability. Aware of the qualities of your breath. Your spine is long. Sit bones settle. The breath is deep and smooth, without any sound or pause. Often bring your hands to prayer pose in front of your heart, and bowing your head towards your fingertips, we ask. May all beings be safe. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be happy. May all beings find their freedom. May they know peace. May they walk through the world with ease. We seal our practice and the benefits of it as we bow in namaste. Thank you. You what? You did just fine. Take care of yourself. I'd like to see that. What do you guys want to do? I'm here till 3:30. We have about 3 hours that we want to be practicing teacher, asana, verbal cues, and all that stuff. Do you want your lunch now, or do you want to wait until a little later? Say it again.
Wait.
Yeah, because today's a little bit shorter than Saturday, but still, it's still a long day. Wait a little bit? Okay. So maybe we'll have lunch at 1:30 instead of 12:30. And if you all need to use the restroom right now, take about 5 minutes and then we'll come back to chat. But all we need to chat about. So interesting. Through the chakras now. And I was saying, from it was so tricky. That's neat. Yeah. Childish is sick to get.
Yeah, like we should wear an airbrush. Yeah, your class workout is like, I think I had my shoulders this morning.
I was gonna ask you how your back is.
My back's, no, it's a hot mess.
It is what it is.
It is what it is, yeah.
It's just so lovely to be in a room full of people that are versed in their yoga, and the gracefulness that you guys move with is just awesome. I'm even watching Nikki
So.
move through just Tadasana. It's just beautiful. So thanks for that.
Thank you so much. The side ankle, whenever our arm was reaching up, when you have us put our hand, that hand behind our lower back with our palm facing out. Opening up a little bit more and then drawing the fingertips off the ribs, then opening, that helped me so, I had rotator cuff surgery
Aha.
in October, and I overused my left arm.
Yeah.
My left arm is kind of wonky now.
Yes.
So they're both a little, like, good days, bad days, that's helped me so much, like,
But your rotator cuff surgery and how you injured it in the first place and your rehab from it is gonna be a platform for you to teach when people have shoulder stuff going on.
Yeah.
Because I've injured both shoulders and not surgery, but PT and weightlifting actually. With a trainer that knew exactly what she was doing to rehab the shoulders and then finding ways to move in yoga so I'm not re-injured, because the rotator cuff is 4 muscles and you use them differently depending on what you do, what plane of motion you're moving in. And when you can just kind of easily, if your arm is extended, there's more weight on your shoulder. Bring it up. If you just lift the elbow, you cut the weight in half. So then it's easier.
It's all effortless.
Yeah.
Hey, that was great. I'm gonna write that down before I forget, because that's gonna make a difference for me.
And it'll make a difference for you.
Process rotator cuff, and just people, no, I don't mean like people who have repetitive stress, but like weightlifting or whatever it is. But like I knew a lot of people, older people who have rotator cuff issues, and it's not like they were athletes or anything. Is it grounding? Is
A
it?
lot of times it's because they stopped using your shoulders. Probably the most important thing I do in a class that's 70s and 80s years old is make them reach up.
Yeah.
And if you've noticed, when I didn't do so much of it today, but yesterday we did it. Bring your thumbs to your shoulders and take your arms straight up. When you say lift your arms, you'll see 15 different ways to get your arms up, unless you specifically talk about every little motion. And when I was working with, I got a certification in Warriors of Ease training, and that's working with trauma informed. So I did my practice and had to record it, and the supervisor that I had was military. She said to me, thumbs to the shoulders and arms straight up is so distinct, and it keeps them from any injury. And I just did it because it brought everybody to center, so thumbs to the shoulders and straight up. And then I'm not overusing the rotator cuff muscles in different areas. Bring your arms straight up. Okay, look at this. Looks like spaghetti. Yeah. But when you come straight up, it's a little more disciplined, and you end up with the alignment that you're looking for instead of, some of this and some of this. Everybody's all over the place.
That's great.
Wish there was a way to like figure that out for like down dog, like some of the arms, like that alignment.
That's why I'm asking you to squeeze that imaginary beach ball between your elbows.
That definitely works for like the shoulder placement, but even just for like the hands, you know what I mean? Like how they get angles and like all that stuff. There's like wrist alignment with the front, but I even just like the placement coming out, because some people like if you have a male with larger scapula or trap muscles, that's not really accessible for some of them. They have to be a little bit wider. But just finding that alignment. Sometimes I work in active child's pose to try and find things like that, like bring your fingers to your. But do you know what I'm saying? Like placement.
So with the hands in down dog, if you've got the middle finger straight forward and parallel with the other hand, then the elbow is lined up and the shoulder's in the right place. If people turn their hands out to the sides, they're already compromising the shoulders and the elbows. Because if you turn your elbows out to the side and you feel like you're not steady, there's a tendency to do this instead of adjust the hands. So the alignment matters. And then mountain pose, keeping the feet parallel. You don't know what's going on. I mean, look at my bunions. This is insane. If I try to line up the inside of my feet, I'm going to be all over the place. But if you look at the fan between the second and third toe and set it right in front of your heel, then the ankle's lined up with the kneecap's lined up with the front of ASIS of the hip, and then it's right in front of the shoulder, it's right underneath the shoulder. And everything is where it needs to be. But initially, you put somebody in mountain pose and you tell them how to do that, and they go, oh, I can't do this. It hurts, my hips are
you know, because they've been standing with their feet wide and their hips externally rotated for 45, 50 years. So we need to rehab a little at a time. So the cues that almost sound redundant while you're teaching are because you've got 8 to 10, maybe 15 people, 40 people in a room, and you start seeing all these different stances.
Yeah.
So you say it over and over and over again. And there's always one that's never going to hear
It
you.
never gets, like, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, like.
Let them go. Let's just let them go.
And you're like, maybe I'm not being clear enough, so then you re-articulate and nothing, you know.
Right. Right. So is Nikki back? Nikki's back too. Everybody's back. So what we're looking at today is just exactly what we're talking about, verbal cues. So this last practice that we just got finished with, I was like over the top with verbal cues. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Or are you used to that? Because I want people to feel a certain thing, to see a certain thing. But what I want to ask you about the practice that you just had, and Nikki, you're included, tell me what you learned about yourself while you did that practice. And I'm not any kind of a savior. This is about what you were feeling inside your body, depending on what I said that made you change something a little bit, even just tiny.
There were so many, honestly. There were like more than a handful. And I actually, usually in a practice, I'll be like, oh, that was a great cue. That kind of lost track a little bit. Honestly, it was just an overall, and I lost myself. I don't say I lost myself in practice. I found myself in practice. I was so tuned into what was going on. I literally laughed and cried in this practice. And I found like a lot of connection with myself in it. And it was, for me, the space that was created with those verbal cues got me really deep inside some micro movements.
Can you be specific?
I know, I'm trying.
And then we can write it down.
Just the
because-
closest one I think to me was we were taking our arm up and we started with the hand behind the back, and then you had us raise our thumb towards the armpit before reaching the arm up. That just released
a few people.
my shoulder when I was reaching up. So like you said, it just didn't stress out, because I actually have a bit of an injury in the right side of my neck too that I'm working with. So that just released it even more. Like that's not even accessible for me sometimes without a little pop or something uncomfortable. So
Okay.
it's nice to find that, especially for me. But there were several other cues. I just can't actually.
Well, maybe it'll come back to you on some. Nikki, what did you notice?
Oh, I'm glad that you called on me because I just want to piggyback off the shoulder cues. My constitution is such that I have like a ton of heat and it tends to congest like right here. And the shoulder cues are really helpful because then all of that heat that comes from the core spreads out, like it goes out, but in a kind way instead of like, which is what happens when like you have a lot of intensity or a lot of heat, right? It's like eventually it'll combust or it'll like be like a projectile. So I really appreciated the cues. I practice a lot on my own, and it's just important, I think, to have different input, not the same teachers all the time, to help bring sensitivity and awareness to things that we're not usually paying attention to. So thanks for that.
All righty, thanks. You can share whatever you want.
Shavasana, you're cueing for spreading and feet apart slowly, and then the shoulders apart by moving the hands. That was wonderful.
Isn't that cool? I never said that out loud before, but I would do that, put my heel down and then point my toe, and it felt like I was getting all this release. Because the opposite of stress is space. So when you can find more space in your body, whether it's just to open the heart or, let the shoulders come down, wherever you find it, the stress level goes down. Because we do hold tension, especially if we're doing something new. And you're listening and thinking, as soon as you start thinking, did I do that right? Or what did everybody else do? You're already off the mark. So if you listen to the cue and then listen to your body, you usually get there a little quicker. And then there's this nice deep breath in, it works out really fine.
So what did you hear?
You know, I really liked when you added the palette to the chain of command, as I call it, because there's a lot of space if you're cueing from your heart to the crown of your head, and this gives you a midway point. And this certain little extra elevation, a little tweak,
Yeah.
that, yeah, and then I just realized, boy, my neck is in a good spot. And I realized that. I did realize heat, and I don't know, intense heat in the, when you were going through the chakras and in the Shavasana, and I think that you suggested, I believe that we breathe, I can't remember what you said, from the lowest chakra up and then back down. After I did that once, this heat just came up the whole chain, so that was very warming. And a sense of openness, really, in the standing postures. And I felt like you gave me the permission to not hyperextend, which,
Okay.
and like
You gave yourself permission. You just heard what I said.
yeah, you were the channel to give me whatever.
Yeah.
And the Alpanasa series in the beginning was just a great opening for psoriasis. And some one of your stretches, I even felt arthritis.
Oh,
Okay, and that's hard to get to. And that's a trigger.
That was
That's-
maybe the side
Yes,
in crocodile.
yes.
Yeah.
So many more, but.
So this is everything that I cued you on today is a cue that I got from another teacher. So really, we just kind of recycle what speaks to us. And that's the joy of it, because I'm not all that in a bag of fries. I'm just really tuned in to being able to say what I feel and pretty clear on the fact that, you know, we're all a whole lot more alike than we think we are. And if it worked for me, then there's a good chance it might work for you. So tell me what you heard.
Interesting one for me, which I never really thought about, is when we were in the twist, and you said to feel it in the lung,
Okay.
like the opposite lung.
Yeah.
I felt that really opened it up
That's Sherry Friedrichsen.
a lot more.
She'll talk you through.
And when we did side angle and reverse warrior, you're cued to just lengthen as opposed to like a side bend.
Yeah.
Gave it a different feeling for me. I don't know, there's, so many more. The Shavasana cue, that was wonderful.
Don't you feel like reverse warrior, and there's another name for it. Some people call it some peaceful warrior.
Yes.
And it's funny how, you know, different teachers have different places they come from. But reverse warrior for me is about being fierce in the reaching. And if you're so far back, then it turns into this kind of modified back bend, side bend thing. And if you're hypermobile, it's beautiful, but you kind of miss the point. Because I think the reaching straight up and getting that length gives the warrior concept a little bit more validity, don't you think? It just feels like you should get longer instead of so far back. And I guess there's reason for both. It depends on whatever the style is that you're coming from. So.
If anything's great.
Learn a
I'm in the
little bit
zone
more
right
about
now, so
yourself.
I can't really verbalize right now.
This is at 3:00 in the morning, so yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love your cues, yesterday and today that are just about, it's not like I go to a different place when I do yoga, but, I am here with the breath. I've learned to tune into the breath and keep coming back to it, but I feel like you take the time to say, what's going on in your right hip? Or, just like, oh, yeah, I can pay attention to that too. And that's helpful for me. It's just helpful for someone to say, do this, or, I'm just like suggest, what's going on in that inner thigh, or, and when we were lying on our backs and you had us pull the knee in and then move it to the side, I've noticed about myself, but it was very obvious that my right, there's a catch on my left side. There's a something in my left hip, and it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, I knew that was there. And something you said yesterday about, when I was asking you about the forward folds, about your nervous system, if you're in a posture long enough and you breathe, it will it'll
The joints and the
signal,
tendons,
it'll signal, relax.
yeah, and get
So,
longer.
yeah,
Instead of moving fast and tightening, because the body will protect itself.
exactly. And I like, the cues, and I've been doing this recently too, is being in the fierce poses and postures and coming to the diaphragmatic breath versus, because when you're here, you want to, the tendencies want to breathe up here.
Yeah.
And so, those are really helpful. Love your cues. And just feel what you feel. This is your practice. I love those kinds of cues. It's just a great reminder.
Because then you get to have, the experience is yours.
Yeah,
It's not about what I know,
right.
it's about what's happening for you inside the four corners of your mind.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about yesterday with Kate, the Yoga Sutras, about direct experience is the best teacher. So,
Yeah.
Well, first I'm gonna say I agree with everybody before me. But a couple of things in the beginning that I really liked. I really liked the hold of the knee when we brought it out to the side. I've just never done that before. I've never thought to do it, and sometimes I don't like opening because I feel like you can get like a wonky hip thing, if you take that wide too quick. And somebody always takes it further than their body's ready for,
Uh-huh.
and they don't want to bring it back.
So keep both hands
So I
on
really
it.
like that, yeah, and it allowed me, I felt like, to get more stretch through the left, like, hip
Oh.
flexor, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it was grounded more instead of letting it be open. This, I don't know if anybody else noticed this, but when we were doing core, floating the knees and then lifting and then twisting, coming back, like I felt my core engage in a way I haven't felt. Maybe since before I had kids or something. It was just,
Really?
it was like it like came into play. Yeah, I mean it felt in a good way. But it was just like this really deep, I don't know if it's because we did a little core before it, so it was just like already warmed up. But also I think that control of motion, like
The control
Yeah.
is because people will start to twist before they're
Just
even off
move.
the floor. And if you can cue to come up and then turn, come back and then down, there's 4 movements to it. It's not just up and over.
yeah.
And
It's like less momentum.
yes, and it's always been important to me to know that the slower you move, especially when you're working with core, the more benefit you're gonna get.
I love a good like core burn, feeling like I'm making little tears in those muscles. You know what I mean? Like really, like
There's a little bit.
There's a little pit up.
But and then just I mean overall I felt probably I guess the simplest way to put it was when we were in standing postures, all of the cues really I felt like did get me to a place where I felt strong, stable, and at ease.
Kate said one time when I was in teacher training, don't stop before the miracle. And it forced me to go from down dog to wild thing, and I had never done that before, because I was afraid I was gonna fall. And what she kept talking about was that we don't necessarily trust our bodies to do what it already knows how to do, because we start thinking. And if you feel strong enough, then go for it, take the challenge. But if your body is telling you, maybe not, listen to that too. So to bend your knee another inch. You have another inch in you. And then there's teachers that will go, come on, just a little more. So an inch wasn't enough. They have to send you too far into it. And I want to be, right with everybody else, so I'll take it too far and not listen. And then I'm sorry every time. So thanks for that, yeah.
So as soon as we stopped, I had to tell you, I forgot the shoulder thing was great for me. Side angle, but parents said that was great for both of my shoulders. But it got me to a place where I was grounding more than I was grounding more in my feet than I know I did more than I usually do because I was paying attention to this part of my body and this motion and this movement. I was just sinking more and more and more and more and more, so I was taking my time. I think sometimes I get ahead of myself. So I'm like, side angle, I know what's gonna come. So I'm like, I know what's coming, I know what's coming, I know what's coming. Okay, I'm here, all right, now we're gonna come back up. It forced me to stay planted while I was just slowly taking my time.
Yeah.
Just
Being
because
in the
I've done
moment.
this 1,000 times doesn't mean, and so I learned something new because it was in that moment, I was really taking my time. At the very beginning, the first Shavasana we did, I felt super safe right as soon as we started because you said bend your knees if your lower back is a little tight this morning. And then I was like, okay, I can do whatever I need to do in this practice, whatever my body feels is good for me.
Mhm.
You know, you weren't saying like stay, you gave me an option because my back is tight, my legs
And you
were
didn't
bent.
need it at the end of the practice.
I didn't need it at the end of the practice, but in the beginning, you saying that just flipped a switch and I felt safe. I don't have to overextend, I don't have to do anything that doesn't feel right. You know, I think just subconsciously that one thing that you said gave me the permission to move how I need to move.
Mhm.
You know, and listen to my body because my knees were already bent when you said that. And I'm like, oh, she's saying that, so this is fine. This is good. You know, I listened to myself. And you said, I'm trying to think what else. Oh yeah, the reverse warrior. Not going into this modified back bend, like who can bend the farthest in reverse warrior?
Seriously.
It's lengthening.
Mhm.
You know, so I was like, oh, I'm not trying to, bam, as far as I can go. I was really lengthening. And again, for the shoulder stuff, for me, and the arm stuff is super important because I'm still in physical therapy. I mean, it's not as often as I was doing it 3 times a week, but I'm still kind of like, I'm kind of babying my shoulders sometimes.
Mhm.
I don't know if I need to, I don't know if I should. I'm still kind of learning how to move now. But when you said that, I was like, oh, I'm lengthening. Oh, this feels really good. I'm lengthening. I'm not
And I
lengthening.
noticed when we did that pose, you did a bind and it was soft and it took her deeper without having to do the back bending thing. She just slid the opposite arm behind and reached for the other thigh. And that's always an option and it's beautiful, but there are people who will take that too far and move into the modified back bend with the bind. And then they compromise the shoulder that's reaching.
Yeah, and I don't know if they feel grounded anymore because they're kind of tilted. And how are you breathing? Like you're just, whoa, you know. It's like it just doesn't. Some people do that automatically and they're great. They've been dancing or stretching for years, but I haven't. So that reminder is really good.
Yeah. And you made a point, the breath. If your breath changes and it has to become shallow or short or choppy,
Yeah.
you're not in the pose that belongs to you.
Right.
So that makes a difference too.
Yeah, that's a really great reminder. I think that's something that I'll use when I'm teaching. How are you breathing right now?
Yeah, that's your voice. It's
Yeah.
it's
Listen
what
to
tells
it.
us.
Listen to it. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was great.
Nice.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Well, my shoulders are tight, so I also appreciated that coming into that half bind in the side angle.
Okay.
It felt more accessible to me.
Mhm.
So I like that a lot. Reading my writing. Oh, the word notice the sensation. I love that.
Because you wouldn't otherwise?
I think I could use a reminder. Let's just put it that way.
I need it.
Yeah.
But I love it. It's not judging it. It's simply noticing.
Right. Right.
Um,
There's a kindness to how you speak
for sure.
about your own body, as well as, if you're trying to teach other people and you're being self-deprecating. And I learned this the hard way in Costa Rica last year. It wasn't, Kate said it during the Ayurvedic interview thing, but then so did my roommate, that I'm very self-deprecating. You're always putting yourself down, and I thought, I didn't think anybody noticed that. I thought I was just being funny. And I stopped. Because it came from somebody that I respected, and I thought, I really didn't think I was doing it that much. But here's people that hardly know me, and they're seeing it, ew.
Your
So-
language matters.
Yeah, so I guess it's spilling over into my practice, that's nice.
And then in Shavasana, the sort of final visualization of bringing light in through the root chakra to the crown and releasing something on the exhale.
Yeah.
Sadness, which is.
And there's, one of the things that it talks about in the literature is not getting, I always call it hallmarking. You know, you can say anything in a Hallmark card, it all sounds all flowery and everything, but there are teachers that will do that in a class. And half the time, if they're getting all flowery about what you're supposed to be imagining, do you even know what they're talking about? You know, it takes you way out of yourself. And we want to stay in here. That's what the practice is for, to get a little bit more familiar with you. You're here for a reason, this is your vessel, what do you know about yourself? And yoga will take you there. But if the teachers are taking you away from that, then maybe that's not the right teacher for you. Or maybe they could use a little bit more. $500. But have you all noticed that in different places? I'm trying to think of some of the cues that I would hear. Get yourself open like a flower. Really?
Well, that's a pretty triggering sometimes when you're saying like open heart. Open your heart is like, I'm kind of.
You know what? I got yelled at for that.
Yeah, like I got my heart broken last week. I don't want to open my heart.
That's what, did you get called on it by Sherry?
Yes.
Yeah, she's.
Start with the heart, she said.
Oh.
Yeah, she's like, the heart will organically open
Yeah.
when the bottom chakras, chakras are.
Oh,
So now if I say it, I'm looking for a lightning bolt.
What
From
did you
the other
say?
gods.
Open your heart like the lotus flower.
No, I probably said, you know, whatever the posture was, let your heart open. She said, concentrate on the shoulders. Let yourself talk about the anatomy. Don't get all caught up in, you know, the flowery
Like, open your heart class.
Well, heart opening and that broken heart thing. Yeah, I was going through a divorce, and I was in one of my first private trainings with a teacher that was Himalayan trained, and she had me in camel. I love camel, like one of my favorite poses. And she said to me, "Oh my God, look how open your heart is," and I collapsed in tears. I had no idea that that was going on in me. I'm in a class, it's totally removed from everything else that's happening in my life, isn't it? No. No.
I would say that I, in my practice, because I do this now, everyone else was sharing, just it reminded me that something that I found, that I kept finding wonderful spaces to say nice things to myself in practice. I was like, oh, I love it. I love this practice. Oh, I love that I'm here. Like, it was just really, it was,
Oh,
and
that's
I find that when we were talking about language and everything, I just really think the way that a lot of people were saying they felt really safe or comfortable or just in their practice. I just really felt very free to be happy and feel whatever I was feeling, just notice things. Like it was really wonderful.
And there's a way to be kind and compassionate like that, but also be
Discipline was a big
Stern
word too that kept
and
me.
disciplined.
I love that word.
to get what you're asking for from a practice, from somebody. You know, if somebody's continually doing something that's going to hurt them, me and the knee, take it out to the side. People always try to open it too wide and they let go of the one hand. So then they're stretching something that I'm not asking them to stretch. And the psoas isn't going to get worked on, it's going to be the inner thigh then. So we're looking for the psoas and to be calculated in that. So here's me, both hands on your knee. Put both hands, lace both fingers together again. And I'll say it over and over again because there's one person who's not listening to me. And it's not so much about me pushing my agenda, but it's about them being safe and having the practice that's intended and not coming back later and saying, you know what, I think I tore something. Well, you know, to shake a finger later is like a moot point, you know, it's already happened. So I don't know if you all heard it. When we started doing sun salutation, I stopped you before we did flat back and said, listen to me. Because people have done sun salutation in all kinds of different ways. There's 3 different practices, A, B, and C. And if you're not listening to the instructor, you're gonna do what you're used to doing, because there's muscle memory. And what do you mean down dog? Don't we just go straight back to plank? I'm supposed to jump, not walk, you know, and all this stuff happens in your head. If you can shut that off and let it go and just listen to the instructor, you'll get the practice that's intended for you that day. If you're not listening, you don't know what's intended for you that day. I had a friend that missed a meeting or something, and somebody said, well, what happened there? And he goes, I don't know what you were supposed to get. You weren't there. So, you know, that was something that taught me. And I still do it. I'll get automatic about what I'm doing. And the teacher, in my mind, it's like, well, they're not doing it. They're not teaching it right. And it's not that, it's me. You know, I wasn't listening. I'm thinking I know better. When I came to this class, I paid for it. I want to be able to get what's intended. So how about I just stop thinking I know better?
What is it with bring your hands to your shins that so many people just absolutely refuse to do it?
They hang, like,
Or they grab,
Yeah.
or yeah.
They won't do it, and like I've had students where I get that like you can't bring your hands to your shins, they need to come higher up the legs. A lot of times with men, they just can't find that
Their
90
back won't
degree
let them.
or hamstrings, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so, but like we'll work it out. But then like, so that's one thing, which is fine, it's like we'll figure out, you know, a way to do this. For the majority of people who are able to bring their hands to their shins, they just refuse to do it. And now I'll repeat it, bring your hands, place them on your shins. Press your hands into your shins, press your shins back into your hands. There's always somebody just dangling.
Yeah.
So what else
And I
could
think
you,
it's
so how could you get more
making it
detail
easier.
about it? Say
I mean, I
again?
don't know how you make, I mean, like, that's my point is, it's pretty straightforward. You know, bring your hands to your shins.
Okay,
And
so
now pause, and have people breathe, because everybody just does that so incorrectly, so regularly.
So break it down. Your hands have different places on them. So if you're gonna ask somebody to bring their hands to their shins, can you start with a specific point on the hand?
With that ball on your hand, I guess.
Well, here's what I've done. I've seen people, you know, do that, come into flat back, forward fold, bring your hands to your shins, and they're doing this.
Right.
So my cue would be, take the heel of your hand and place it underneath your kneecap. And it's like, this is taking forever. But there's one guy not listening to me.
Right.
So if I put my heel of my hand underneath my kneecap, and then I let the fingertips drop down over the shin bone, you know, it does take forever, but then you're gonna hear that again and again in your head after somebody has talked you through each of that. And then maybe keep your fingers together. You know, how many other things can you think about?
There just seems to be this refusal to even come along for that part of the
I
ride.
think we're anticipating what comes next.
I think it's like using blocks. I think that people think that it's cheating. You know, like some students just refuse to use blocks. And like I'll have to tell people like, look, we're all using blocks today. It's, you know, it's not making the pose easier for you. It's allowing you to get into this shape that otherwise we would not be able to do.
Right.
You know, and something about the hands to shins. And I don't know if it's rooted in like a certain lineage of yoga.
I have no idea.
I mean, because I don't know what it is either, but like I'll look around the room and I'll say multiple times, like bring your hands, you know, place the palm of your hand on your shin bone, on your knees.
Iyengar
like somebody
keeps your
inevitably
fingers
is
on the
always just
floor.
hanging out over.
I learned that way.
But we have a lot of,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying it's a young people thing. In the city, you have a lot of college girls, and they just won't listen to it.
I just say this is not the
They're
pose.
just defiant.
If your arms are hanging down, it's not the pose.
I know
That's
you're
not
just
the pose.
Right,
Bro,
right.
I mean, serious, like, and I don't like to always have to single somebody out, and there isn't always 10 minutes to break down hands to shins,
Mhm.
whenever everybody else is also here and paid a decent amount of money
For a flow.
for a 1 hour class, yeah, for a, you know, somewhat connected thing, so like, I try, but it's just one of those things that I'm like, what is it? And it's generally
It's that people
girls
make
in their late teens and 20s.
they think that they know better, so saying that it's not the pose and actually being stern, because I have that age group when I'm teaching dancers, and they really sometimes think that they've been dancing for 10, 15 years of their whole life, they think they really know better, and so they don't know what you're looking for them, they don't know what halfway lift.
I mean, it's almost, I mean, I'll stand up there and say, take, because you know, especially through COVID, where like for a while, I wouldn't even get, now I'll get a little bit, you know, stand alongside somebody if they're really like just, it's not
Right.
clicking out, come and stand next to them, you know, subtly show them without drawing too much attention, but through COVID, like, couldn't even get too close to somebody's mat, so it would be like, okay, take a look up to the front of the room. I mean, you know, like how much more of a visual?
Do you ever show them when it's wrong?
What?
Do you show them it's wrong? Do you hang there like this is
Yes,
this is not
yes.
it. You have to do this. Yeah.
I mean, it hurts me to do that, and then, like, I think it's just this weird refusal that it's for some reason, something that seems like a block, where bringing my hands to my shins is taking the easy way out, and I don't know. And I don't know where it came from.
Yeah, did you have a question?
And yeah, anatomically and biologically, what is the benefit in the posture to have the hands here to support the low back? Yeah.
Support the low back and allow the spine to extend a little bit further. Because and the fingertips are dropped to the floor,
Right.
and then they just say, look forward.
Yeah, right. Look up
Flatten
into
your back.
Yeah.
And this is a super deep hamstring stretch.
Yeah.
So looking forward, it also cranks the neck. So if your hands are on your shins, you're up a little higher. And it seems that when your hands are on your shins, you have the ability to send your shoulders down your back and extend your neck. But extending your neck doesn't mean super extend. I don't even tell people to look forward. I tell them to look at the front of their mat. So even if they're right here and they send the shoulders down the back, then the next cue, if they can't get the neck extended, is send your heart toward the floor. Send your chest bone toward the floor. So if you do that, then the back gets a little bit more extension in it, and the shoulder blades are down the back, and my neck is really nice and long. But, you know, the shoulders are just hanging or they're just lean. And then push the knees back. You know,
Usually, you know, their spine is rounded whenever they're doing that too. So
Right.
that's-
Yeah.
So if you drop the heart, kind of like a cat-cow. Have you ever had people stand in hands to shins and do cat-cow? You know, just
Oh, yeah. I
try
mean,
that
like,
for a little bit.
90% of the people will listen and they want to, you know, be in the posture they're supposed to be in.
Right.
But it does seem like it's one of those few poses where, for whatever reason, there are just certain students who absolutely refuse to even give it a shot. And I don't know why.
Do you ever
I
ask
don't
them?
know what it is with that posture. Well, I mean, no, because
Well, not when everybody else is standing there, but out in the hallway, they're picking up their shoes. Hey, can I ask you a question?
what?
Do you not hear me when I say it?
Well, just listen to you.
Just say it's safer to do it for your back.
Well, absolutely, yeah, I mean, that's my main issue, is I look at somebody dangling in space with round in their spine, their chin tucked up in, their arms just hanging, it's like, clearly this is not good for you.
I
There's so many
remember,
areas.
and Rolf said, Lynn said in our training that the number one cause for slip disc is brushing your teeth and leaning over in that same way that you're just like dangling here. It's, you know, so, yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, there you go. Or picking up socks.
Yeah, yes.
Anything simple.
For sure.
But then the practice itself gives you a stronger body and much more awareness. But there are people, I think what I learned from knowing that there are people, I had this one student that would always do the same thing over and over again, no matter how many times I said it different. And I started going, when I'd see him do it, and I thought, I wonder who heard that. You know, because I was having a reaction and he was triggering me. And it's not helpful to let everybody else say, oh, she's judging him. You know, so that didn't give me any credit.
And it's like you hear what you hear when you're ready to hear it too. And I'm sure Kate has been saying the same thing ever since I've been taking from her. But now I'm hearing her say stuff about breathing that I'm sure she's always said, but now I'm hearing it differently,
Right.
you know?
So you're teaching a class, you have the verbal skills to be able to get them from one part of the mat to the other. And you want to move into a pose, and what are the 4 things that you need to do if you're moving into a pose?
Set up and stretch, recline, and then
Yes. So even with the vinyasa flow, you can stay in a posture long enough to do those 4 things verbally. And that's what I want you to focus on when we get into little groups after we break for lunch. But we can talk for another 20 minutes. We got 2, 4, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Pick 2 postures. And we don't need to move through a whole flow to get to your posture. Like you can start in Warrior 1 and just start there. Like you don't have to set that up. But if you start in Warrior 1, tell somebody they're moving into Warrior 1 from the front of the mat and just step into it. And then once you're there, refine it. What do you want from Warrior 1? What do you want them to have in Warrior 1? Is it the back bend that you're going to focus on? Is it the length you're going to focus on? Is it the breath and where you're feeling it? Think about those things while you're asking somebody to move into a posture, and then find your verbal cues to get those things. Where are their shoulders? Where is the foundation? How is the pelvis facing? And then also, the teacher needs to be able to respect the anatomy that's in front of them. So everybody's anatomy is different. If you got a bodybuilder and you're asking him to step into Warrior 1, and his glutes and his hip flexors are so tight that he's faced one side of the mat, it almost looks like Warrior 2. What are you going to do with him? Maybe you can change his footing. Maybe not so far apart, a little closer together, a little wider. There's all kinds of different ways to not seek perfection, but to give somebody the experience of the posture and what it's designed for. So things like side angle or Trikonasana, down dog is one of my favorite places to refine, because pretty typically you've got the hypermobile and their whole rib cage is dropped toward the floor. Their shoulders are wonky, their hands are going in the wrong direction, it's a mess. And then putting that all back one thing at a time. And you may have to stay there for a little bit. The opportunity I get with being with you guys is I got all this time and we can talk about all this stuff. But if you're teaching a class, like Tatum said, and you have an hour, you want people to get it, you could do a flow and focus on 2 poses and take time to stay in each of those poses for a little bit longer and then go back to your flow. So, those are things that they're always available. And I think probably one of my favorite things to learn from teacher training is I get to be a teacher. It's up to me. So what kind of teacher do you want to be? Your verbal cues are going to speak that. Your practice is going to speak that. If you can teach from the mat, you notice when I was teaching you, I wasn't doing the practice. You guys were on the floor doing whatever I was asking you to do. But then we moved into something else and I changed my position. I came into lunge just for a minute and then I sat down to watch you do it. And then when we went to standing postures, I stood up. So I'm with my class, even though I'm not demonstrating. And then if I felt like I couldn't verbally say it, I would move into the pose myself, and that gives me more information to be able to offer. So yeah, isn't it interesting when you press down into a block, you can do something with that shoulder underneath that if that wasn't called attention to, you would never know it's there. And then this happens. So there's a sequence of events when you're refining. So keep that in mind. You can pick any 2 postures that you want. Nikki will be with somebody up here, maybe Erin.
Sure.
So get into your groups of 2 now and decide what postures you want to work on, and then we'll have a break. And then afterwards, we'll come back and do some teaching.
So each of us, like, I do 2, you do 2.
No.
Oh, okay.
You can each pick one, and then between the 2 of you,
Yeah, otherwise we'll be here till 9 o'clock.
Okay.
Because we can get a little chat.
Hi, Nikki.
Erin, how are you?
Doing well, how are you?
And thanks.
So, do you have a pose? Do you want to each pick one and then we'll have our two?
I don't have one in mind. How about you? Do you have one that you love?
You know, I guess a pose that just keeps coming into my head is Warrior Two. I think that a lot of people have room to refine in Warrior Two when that is called. So I think that might be a good one to do just because there's usually so much to work with there. The alignment of the shoulders, the hips to the side, while trying to keep the feet in the right position and find Pada Bandha, like the floor connection with the feet so you can control the position of the legs while you're maintaining. There's just so much. I mean, every pose has so much, but I feel like there's a lot of juxtaposition in Warrior Two, and that's why there's so much room for refinement in that posture.
Okay, agreed. Yeah.
Anything else? You pick the next one.
Let me think about it for a minute. So my tendency then would be to pick like a complementary pose.
Sure.
Right? Like lots of prana moving in that pose. And so then I would want to pick something probably more static and
So you want to do something like maybe even like supine or like restful or restorative.
I mean, I'm almost thinking like mountain, you know, coming to Tadasana before like stepping back to the other side.
Actually, that's really lovely because there's like because Tadasana is so foundational. Like working on that is always perfect.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yay. Are we supposed to talk about like what we want to refine when we get up there, or are we just supposed to wait until we get into the posture and see? I'm a little unclear.
I'll be honest with you. I'm probably like at 75% in terms of like audio, so I didn't really hear additional instructions.
Okay, I wonder if there's a way. Where are we?
Not really a volume thing, it's a clarity thing, it's an equipment thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Kind of mentioned
yeah.
I have like a mic at my house. I feel like we might be able to attach and make things a little more clear so that maybe you can hear it better. Really feel for you. It sucks.
It is a little challenging.
Yes, yeah. Cool. Are we supposed to write down what we want to refine? Should I ask?
Do you mind asking what she would like us to do for right now?
So do we practice first and then or is it just spontaneous?
No, we'll practice first.
Okay.
So you're just pretty much talking about it now.
Yes.
Deciding what you want.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna like lunch break.
Okay, lotus.
And
So
then-
you know what it's like, you know, when you put like, we should like the arms.
Yeah, it's cool. Some of them are fun, no, it doesn't matter if you know somebody else.
Yes, yes.
Something that you think you're good enough at to be able to talk somebody through it. That's just like-
Yeah.
Okay, I think this is all that we're doing. We're just picking the poses and then
Okay.
that's it. And going to lunch.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll see you in a little bit then.
All right, I'll see you. I don't know if we can dismiss officially, but I'll see you in a little bit. Either way.
Okay, sounds good.
I never wrote that. Yeah, where my butt goes. Yes, even my daughter actually, she was.
Yeah.
Nothing sad. Years old, right? Oh, yeah. And now it's actually faster than yeah, she's always fun, but this was her last year in the children's. And then I got yours, and it jumped in. And now
She's more like
Yes.
and I'm more sad.
Yes.
And
So
so
I
I
know
know like things like especially she's
Yes.
And then as she gets more older, she's on the floor every week. You know, I told my mom. And I was like, well, you know, I sometimes want to step back. She's like, yeah. She's not a great. Sure. Yeah. Once she gets there, she always. Yeah. Kind of like meh or ballet.
You guys are all done, so
We're
if you wanna go to lunch, go to lunch.
Oh, cool. Okay.
What time should we
But
go back?
I told her, like, well.
Come back at before 5 till.
Yeah, yeah, it's not fun.
Okay.
Yeah. No, no, your show's off.
Five to-
Oh.
Before-
Yeah.
before five.
Yes.
Okay, okay. She does.
1:55.
Okay.
There's all kinds of ways to say it.
But you know, it's, they get you, I love it because, they just run such a tape of that. I love it.
So what do you, which one do you want?
Okay, so when she comes, she'll try to catch an observation lead for the level.
Yeah.
And she's always just amazed. Such an amazing.
Yeah.